Imagine a young girl who left for a part-time job but tragically never made it back home. Days later, she's found, having been attacked and killed. This tragic scenario reflects the harsh reality for many women in Juarez. In this episode, we're uncovering the dark truth behind these femicides and exploring the possible reasons behind them. But before that, please subscribe to our channel and join us as we delve into this critical issue. The chilling history of Ciudad Juárez, a city shadowed by a series of horrific crimes against women, paints a dark and unsettling picture. From 1993 to 2003, over 300 young women met brutal ends, marking a decade of terror and mystery in this Mexican border city. The nature of these crimes, often targeting young women with specific physical features, hinted at a sinister pattern, one of ritualized serial killing. The government in Chihuahua State says that about 76 of the victims show signs that a serial killer might have hurt them. These women were attacked in awful ways. Many were harmed sexually, and they were often tied up. Some of them had their hair cut off roughly or had injuries to their bodies. There were also bodies found with their heads badly damaged as if they had been hit by a car. Many of the victims were young workers from the city's foreign-owned factories, the maquiladoras. Their disappearances were abrupt and often occurred in broad daylight, with their bodies later discovered in the desert and subjected to unthinkable atrocities. The official count of these femicides since 1993 stands at 260, but local women's groups estimate the true number to be over 400. The hallmarks of these killings, rape, mutilation, and extreme violence, point to the work of serial killers preying on a certain demographic of young women, increasing at an alarming rate. If we look into the statistics, since 1993 in the Juarez area, with a population exceeding 2 million, roughly 30 women have been victims of murder each year. In comparison, the murder rate among men in Juarez is even higher, with over 200 men killed annually. However, unlike the female victims, these men are not subjected to sexual torture. In a compelling survey from 2004 to 2005 in Ciudad Juárez, targeting women between 15 and 39 years old, the findings were eye-opening. A startling 27% of these women reported experiencing physical violence, and 11% faced sexual assault. Yet strikingly, fewer than 1 in 5 would ever think of taking their case to the authorities. This paints a concerning picture, suggesting that some of these brave survivors of domestic abuse might tragically become future victims of femicide. Flipping the page to a broader scene, a massive national survey in 2003, backed by Mexico's Institute of Women, INMUJER, and the Census Bureau, INEGI, revealed that half of the women questioned had endured psychological and physical abuse in their homes. Recent reports have highlighted a continued wave of murders targeting women in Juarez. These brutal crimes often involve the bodies of victims being found in public areas, sometimes dismembered. For instance, in 2002, the discovery of 8 more bodies near a busy intersection in Juarez, only 2 miles from the city center, reignited the deep-seated fears of the residents. Among the victims was Claudia Yvette Gonzalez, a 20-year-old factory worker. The state of her remains, recognized by her family through the remnants of her attire and the white rubber bands in her ponytail, was a stark testament to the brutality of these crimes. The investigation led to the arrest of 2 bus drivers, who were claimed by the police to have confessed to the rape and murder of these 8 women and 3 others. This announcement, made by the Attorney General of Chihuahua, the state encompassing Juarez, was supposed to mark the end of this tragic chapter. However, skepticism and criticism surrounded the handling of these cases, with activists pointing out the increasing brutality of the killings and the ongoing nature of these crimes. But what is the reason behind this heinous killing? Let's find out some of the theories behind it. Theories behind the brutality. The theories surrounding the brutal killings of women in Ciudad Juárez are varied and complex, veering into the realms of both the plausible and the far-fetched. Initially, suspicion was cast upon outsiders with the arrest of Abdel Latif Sharif, an Egyptian engineer and convicted sex offender in the U.S. Despite his incarceration and subsequent death in prison, his connection to the serial killings remains doubtful. As media attention intensified, a range of theories emerged. Among these were disturbing suggestions involving snuff film producers, drug traffickers using murder as a twisted form of celebration, corrupt police officers, and organ traffickers. Other suspicions pointed to gang members, U.S.-registered sex offenders, and the wealthy sons of local families, commonly referred to as Los Juniors. While some theories, like those involving snuff films and organ trafficking, may seem outlandish, they reflect the depth of public speculation and fear. The identification of the actual perpetrators remains elusive, hindered by inadequate evidence collection and investigation by local authorities. This uncertainty contributes to the dark cloud hanging over Ciudad Juárez, a city now synonymous with these unsolved and horrific crimes. The situation in Ciudad Juárez cannot be isolated from broader societal issues. It reflects underlying political, economic, and institutional failings that contribute to public insecurity, extreme violence against women, and judicial impunity. These factors form a complex tapestry that goes beyond simple explanations or sensational theories. So, why don't the victims seek any help? The cold response. Reports are suggesting that the number of women disappearing or being murdered in Juarez might be as high as 1,000 or 1,500, and this could be an understatement. Many of these women, often employed by maquiladoras, factories with harsh working conditions, mostly owned by U.S. companies seeking tax benefits and cheap labor, vanish from their workplaces or the streets. It's not uncommon for several women to go missing within a single week. Many of these women, when found, have been subjected to sexual assault and mutilation. Sometimes their bodies are discovered weeks, months, or even years later. However, most of them remain missing, leaving their families and friends without closure or answers. The anthology and numerous reports over the past decade and a half highlight a disturbing trend. Mexican law enforcement agencies don't seem to prioritize solving these murders. The language used by authorities when referring to the victims is telling. Rather than being addressed as individuals with their own names, these women are often labeled in a manner that dehumanizes them, such as little Indian girls from the South, sweatshop workers, or even prostitutes. This terminology is problematic, as it almost implies a justification for the heinous crimes committed against them. The beacon of hope is Esther Chavez Cano. She's at the helm of Casa Amiga, an anti-violence counseling center. In 2005, her relentless efforts finally paid off, leading to the opening of Ciudad Juárez's first and only shelter for women suffering from domestic violence. It's a vital resource in a place where the shadows of violence loom large. Also, mothers who lost their daughters to the brutal murders in Juarez have been at the forefront of organizing and advocating for justice. Their relentless efforts have not only drawn attention to the issue of violence against women, but also to the broader concern of public safety. These brave mothers have become a source of inspiration for many human rights and feminist groups, along with ordinary citizens, sparking a wider movement to highlight these issues. While justice for their daughters remains elusive, their activism is gradually paving the way for a stronger democratic framework and a more effective rule of law in the border regions. This dark period in Juarez's history is not just a series of isolated crimes, but reflects deeper societal and systemic issues, including gender violence and the failure of law enforcement and judicial systems to adequately protect women. It remains a somber reminder of the vulnerability and dangers faced by women in certain parts of the world, and the urgent need for systemic change to prevent such tragedies in the future. If you found our exploration of this pressing issue insightful and want to stay updated with more content like this, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps us reach more people and keep the conversation going. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon so you won't miss out on our future videos.